And we jump on board with Carlos Sainz down towards the first corner. Now you can just see the shadow appearing on the left-hand side. That's Lewis Hamilton, who's had a better start than Sainz, coming alongside him down towards turn 1. Again, there's not really anywhere for Carlos to go through the first corner. That's Mick Schumacher on his outside. We've got the Alpine of Esteban Ocon just ahead. Little touch there from Bottas and Magnussen. But Carlos actually does well by being on the inside of turn 1, the outside of turn 2. Hamilton's now gone through that runoff area. It looked slightly unprovoked for Lewis to do that as well, but he was already at the back, and he comes on plumb last after that. Now Sainz is looking at the back of Sergio Perez, and this is an important move here that Sainz needs to put on the Red Bull that we know is very quick, and it gets so tight between the two of them. Here, Checo just puts a huge squeeze on Carlos coming down through exit of Curva Grande towards the braking zone for the second chicane. Eyes ahead for Checo, puts a squeeze on Carlos, and they are so close to wiping each other out of the race here at this point. That would have been on Checo for that one to be moving across as he's hitting the brakes or coming towards the brake point, a little bit like he did actually on Leclerc at Spa a couple of races ago. So Perez putting a huge squeeze on Sainz. Sainz reads it, backs out, he'll fight for another day, but a little bit rude there from Perez. We fast forward half a lap and Sainz is having another go at Sergio Perez. Medium tyres on both cars at this point. Same strategy, and it's an important move here. Sainz to the outside, and he comes in so hot behind Latifi's Williams at this point. It looks like he's about to wipe him out. Big lock up, and then again diving towards the apex of turn 2, and this is so close. Really fine margins. He's actually racing Perez, but he's so close twice to just wiping the back of the Williams of Latifi in the battle with Perez. And through goes Sainz finally, puts a squeeze on Checo, this time coming out of turn 2. Again, this time they actually touch. They're really close, this Ferrari and Red Bull fight further back. We ride on board with Perez for a better view of it. Comes in. Now at this point, I think Checo's quite worried about actually ploughing into the cars ahead, and he's braking, trying to brake really late watching Sainz. But in doing so, realises that he's approaching fast behind this Williams, who's about to turn in for an apex. And so he's fully locked up here, trying to stop, not hit Latifi, and it's quite panic stations really for Perez. He just about manages to get it slowed down. Sainz still there as well, taking his chances with the back end of the Williams as well, and then just squeezing now Perez to the outside, coming out of turn 2. Big squeeze from Sainz, little touch between the two there as well, and Sainz goes through. And it's an important move from Sainz, who was absolutely brilliant in the Grand Prix, was really instinctively aggressive but clean in his overtakes, managed to really charge through the field and give himself a great shot of actually making a podium as well. The sketchiest moment Sainz had was probably coming actually into the pits after the Perez part, and it's coming in so late, locks it up, and it's a really easy pit lane to actually overshoot in Monza because you come flying around Parabolica at a really high speed, peel off to the right, and then suddenly the pit lane hits you quickly, 80 kph. It's a faster one, thankfully, so there's less to slow down to that 60, which feels really pedestrian in a Formula 1 car. Here he's locked up, scrabbling for that line there. You can see it as he's crossed it, but he manages to release the brake, so it's pretty much, it's fine for Sainz. He manages to lock up. Panic stations, I think, when you're doing that coming into the pits, you don't want to be obviously speeding in the pit lane. That's gonna cost you. And Sainz managed to slow it down well enough that he could release the brakes as he went through under that 80 kph, and then he comes for a pit stop. But with their races intertwined in many cases, then this was Sergio Perez a few laps later, also steaming into the pits on his hard tyres, and Perez actually goes in a little bit deeper than Sainz to the pit lane as well. Almost does the same thing, but actually more aggressively trying to slow down from his hard tyres, and you can see he's actually locked up after that pit lane speed limit line, just panicking again, trying to stop the car, not incur the penalty for speeding in the pit lane. And Checo is really just hammered on the brakes and actually slowed it down way beyond 80 kph in the end. And you can do that because it just brings the average down of your speed in the pit lane, and it's done on just mini averages through the pit lane. So it's a chance that if you do go in slightly hot, you just hammer it on the brakes, slow it down as much as you can, and you may just about get away with entering technically too fast. But it's a tight one. You don't want to be in that position, and Perez, with slowing it down, manages to now get on the gas and get up to 80 kph and make his pit stop. Sketchy ones for both. Now for Sainz, it was 4th place in the end. Could have been 3rd. This is what would have happened without the late safety car. Carlos on the charge, on the soft tyres at the end. Again, a strategy he called from the cockpit. He's proving pretty good at that, and it showed again. Soft tyres were the way to go. Everyone that did that strategy at the end benefited, and Carlos, without the safety car, would have come right up to the back of George Russell, and we might have had a one-lap shootout for the podium place at the death. As it was, the podium might have been gifted to Sainz and Ferrari when Russell pitted off the hard tyres under the safety car, only for Ferrari to copy them and follow George Russell into the pits, thus giving up a chance of third place, which we know the race was never resumed. That was a chance for Sainz, who was already on a set of soft tyres. Did he need a fresher set to fight on what would be a maximum one final lap? I think the choice there for Ferrari was to stay out and take third place and risk having to defend from the Mercedes on new soft tyres on the final lap. As it was, they didn't, and with the race not restarting, it was fourth for Sainz. But nonetheless, a fantastic recovery. Again, those moves at the start of the race really set him up for that. And compared to Hamilton, who we know he was side by side with into the first corner, it was amazing how Sainz just scythed his way through the field. On lap 13, Sainz was already fourth, with Hamilton in 13th. There was 10 seconds between the two of them.
Carlos Sainz on Pierre Gasly. Sainz puts his Ferrari into the top 5.
Sainz was really carving his way through. It was brilliant to watch, not only just because the Ferrari had good straight line speed, but he was doing it on the brakes as well. Hamilton missing some straight line speed in the Mercedes compared to the Ferrari, but he was also missing that little bit of aggression that you know there's a chance of an incident, especially in the opening laps with the midfielders. But Sainz was willing to risk it to try and get back towards a potential podium. He could have had it. Hamilton just a little bit more cautious throughout the first part of the race, and it left him in a completely different race to Carlos Sainz. Maybe the pace of the Mercedes would have put him there anyway. And as it turned out, it was fourth for Sainz and fifth for Hamilton. So that was a look at Sainz and Perez charging their way through the field together, but there was other action as well in the Grand Prix, including at the start, and including a fantastic debut for Nick de Vries. Check it out on F1 TV.